How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Tell me what's going on.
Well, look, I probably had one of the most traumatic experiences of my life last night. Probably comparable to childbirth, is what I'm going to say. Okay. So, as you know, I'm not an outdoors person. I don't like outside. I mean, I do. Like, I like the sunshine, but like on a beach. I don't like to be in Alabama backyards.
My little sister Lisette, shout out.
Shout out Lisette.
My little sister says that my idea of being outdoors is riding in the car with the windows down.
That's 100%.
And I said, I don't even like that because it's too hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me air conditioning.
Yeah. I've been trying to revamp my patio because we have like an outside screened in porch. So I'm like, that's a good balance. Like, because every time I'm in a bad mood or I don't feel good, Philip will be like, well, maybe if you went outdoors every once in a while and drank a glass of water,
he's not wrong.
You'd feel better. He thinks that the cure to everything is drinking water and going outside.
I don't know that I 100% agree, but I think definitely, yeah, that probably would. Little vitamin D.
Well, I don't like either. And so
I know you don't like water.
I'd rather have Mountain Dew and I'd rather sit on the couch.
Understood.
In an air-conditioned home.
Sure.
So anyway, I've been trying to revamp this outdoor patio and I've bought all the stuff and I've been like putting together like the little outdoor furniture and all that kind of stuff. Well, we needed a pressure wash, and so Philip has this old pressure washer, and we just watched Ghostbusters, and I had started using the pressure washer, and I felt just like one of those people on Ghostbusters. Like, and it was so cool because I don't know if you've ever pressure washed like
Have you met me?
So when you
Not ever
pressure wash.
Yeah.
So when you pressure wash wood, it turns a completely different color.
Yeah.
Which totally like sparks the thing in my brain that is like, oh, I want to keep doing this because I can see an immediate react. I like instant gratification. And so I did the whole deck and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I want to keep doing it. And so I thought, well, I need to do the outside because if I do the inside, I should do the outside because it's the same piece of wood, just a different side. Mm-hmm. So I walked down the steps. I probably haven't stepped foot on ground in my backyard in 5 years. I'm being dead honest.
I believe you.
And so I walked down the steps and I went around to the side, like where nobody ever goes. And it's fine, but it had a little bit of grass and stuff. But I didn't think very much of it. Like I did some clapping and some snapping, like in case there were bees or snakes. And I didn't find any. And I sent Eli.
What was all that clapping?
Well, I sent Eli out there for a little bit and let him run around to scare him off, not bait. Gosh. Because he's loud, so he would scare him. I did all this stuff, and I felt so proud of myself. And I came inside, and I told Philip, I was like, I am so outdoorsy. Like, I just pressure washed, and, like, I stayed outside for, like, 2 hours. It was a big deal.
A lot, yeah. That's
it was a lot. And so I thought to myself, you know what, Misty? Maybe you should give the outdoors a chance. Like, there are people who really enjoy to garden.
Yeah.
There are people who really enjoy hiking. So maybe that's in you. You just needed to, like, find a way to get it out, right? So last night afterwards, I was feeling good, and, you know, I was dirty, so I was like, I need to take a bath. So I'm getting ready to take my bath because I love to stew in my own juices.
That's what she said. I don't know what that means.
Well, some people don't like. Philip says I'm dirtier when I get out of a bathtub than when I get in. Because
I understand that, yeah. But I always take a shower after I've been in the bathtub.
Okay, so I'm the opposite. I take a shower in the morning and I take a full bath at night. And he says that our water bill's ridiculous because of me. But I took a bath because I had been outside, and I don't feel like I'm totally clean unless I've submerged myself in water. Because, okay, so when you're standing in a shower, the water comes down on you, and we have bits that need water to go up in them.
Are you saying you need a douche every single time you bathe?
A bathtub douche. Like, I need to know that that area has been hit in all corners with water. Yeah.
But you can achieve that in the shower.
With what? That water's falling straight down. Are you cupping it in your hand and splashing? Because that's not getting all your parts. I feel like you need to soak your behind in a tub of water. for it to be clean.
Okay.
Okay?
This is an interesting conversation.
Just like if you're going to wash dishes, you're not just going to pour water over the top. You're going to submerge it in the water to make sure
you're gonna. If you're washing dishes by hand, you're gonna lather them up.
Right, but they have to be soaked in the water. You can't turn yourself upside down unless you're doing a handstand in there. P.S. If you have any children or your husband is...
It's too late to get him out of the room now.
Or if you don't want me to be a stumbling block to your husband, get him off of this podcast. So I'm getting ready to get in the bathtub, and I feel a pinch. And I'm like...
It wasn't Philip.
And he was nowhere near me. And I thought, what is that? And so I sat down to examine my bathroom parts. And when I did, I used a mirror.
This is why I cannot tell this story. This story is not going in the public feed. It is.
This is Amaryllis. I'm not kidding. If they live in Alabama in the summer in the South, you need to put this out. This is a public service announcement. Okay. Like, they should put this on the freaking TV. I got out my hand.
Pretty sure. Your story does not need to go on TV.
It's a public service announcement. I got out my hand mirror, and I looked at where babies come from.
Oh, my gosh.
And Amaryllis, there was a tick on me.
How? Were you outside pressure washing naked?
No, I had on shorts. Listen, all I can think of is when that pressure washer hit that tick, it jumped to the warmest place it could find. So at first I thought, is this a beauty mark?
It's like your baby parts are the Cindy Crawford of the private parts world.
I literally have a supermodel prison purse. It's designer.
It's wearing Jean-Paul Gaultier and some Jimmy Choo's.
And I always wear red lipstick.
What? Guys, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. So anyway.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
I walked into the kitchen and I said, Philip, I have a tick on my private. And he said,
let me look.
And he said, you should really wear pants when you go out there. And I said, he said, what do you want me to do about that? And I said, nothing. But I'm going to have to perform surgery on myself. And so, thank God that hydrogen peroxide comes in a spray bottle.
Either that or light a match.
Well, I thought to myself, you know, they say if you'll light a match, you can lead a tick out. But I thought, well, that's going to lead to a brush fire. So, in order to keep from forest fires happening again in Alabama, I said, let me just use the hydrogen peroxide.
Real close to a state park. We do not want that.
I got some hydrogen peroxide. I got out my sewing needle and burned the tip of it because that sterilizes it. Sure. And a pair of tweezers. And about 45 minutes later, with tears running down my face, I was able to extract the insect. And I'm fine. I'm okay. Send flowers. But other than that, I'm okay. I am concerned that I have Lyme on my private, Lyme disease.
Well, it wouldn't manifest just on your privates. It would manifest over your whole body.
How long do you have to have a tick to get Lyme disease? I really am scared about that. But I feel like that hydrogen peroxide killed it. So anyway, just warning, if y'all are working out in the yard, check your your tids and bits and make sure that you don't have a tick on them. Do yourself a favor.
That's different than the tids and bits that we talked about earlier.
On Patreon, yeah.
That's different than that.
There's two different types of tids and bits.
Yeah, there sure are.
Yeah. All right.
There you have it.
It's traumatic. I'm still not over it. That's why I was walking kind of funny earlier, if you noticed.
I did not notice.
I'm a little sore.
So why you're wearing a really loose outfit today?
That's why I got these loose overalls on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a tick catcher. Let's talk about the Foxcatcher. Team Foxcatcher. I can't even say it. All right. Hey, guys. This is On the Dock. I'm Amaryllis.
I'm Misty.
We watch documentaries.
Sometimes
so you don't have to.
Sometimes we get ticks in our private.
Not sometimes. One time, and it was Misty.
That was me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to endure that story.
No, I think it's important to know. Summer's coming.
Sure.
People
In Alabama.
People are going to be outside. Ticks are rampant.
My husband has a friend who was bit by a tick, a Lone Star tick.
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago. And now he's allergic to certain kinds of meats.
Oh, Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain fever are no joke. Like, I have a friend whose daughter has Lyme disease, and she deals with terrible pain and symptoms.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said I already have those symptoms because I do have an autoimmune disease. But, yeah, Lyme disease is scary. So, y'all, I'm not kidding. Check your... Who would ever think that a tick would crawl up there? And not,
Yeah, that's crazy.
And, again, not on the outside.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I hear they like to go to warm spots. Like behind your ears.
Well, that's solvable for me. I don't do outside. Certainly not in the summer.
Well, you could be walking from here to there and get one. Maybe. You wear them long skirts. They got a direct path right up there.
Well, I guess that's true, but I do not go where ticks live.
Okay.
I don't. It is almost a... I don't want to jinx myself, but it is a near impossibility for that to happen to me.
Okay. Well, good. Well,
don't do that.
me too. I'm never going outside again.
Yeah, I don't do that. We don't go outside. I know it's terrible. And if I do go outside, it's very curated, very, it's like at a baseball game where I have a umbrella and I'm underneath something, so I am not dying.
Well, I'm about to start wrapping this thing up in saran wrap or something if I go outside.
Okay. Anyway.
Because never again.
Let's talk about our movie tonight.
Let's do.
Okay. Now, first of all, you know what we have to do is we've had requests and we've told people that our next episode was going to be on the movie Quiet on the Set. And it's like still number 2. It's been out for 2 or 3 weeks now. It's still trending number 2 today. I checked it on Max.
Yeah.
And it's a few episodes and we both watched it.
Yeah, we
And-
tried.
Well, I did. I watched it all the way through, and I didn't make any notes on it. I was just horrified by the whole thing. And we definitely have opinions about it. But as ridiculous as we are, and as much as we can have levity with a lot of things, some things are just, like, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, bad.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I told Misty, when Misty got here tonight, I said, I have to be honest with you, because I didn't know how she felt about this. I said, I have to be honest with you. I do not want to do Quiet on the Set.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. It was not fun for me to watch. For me personally, I don't relate to any of the people to begin with. Like that wasn't my childhood. Like I only knew those people, like 2 or 3 of those people. Like I didn't know even a lot of those names.
Right.
And it wasn't my childhood. I could understand and be horrified by what they went through, but it was not something that I was like, oh my gosh, that was happening under my own. And Misty was like, oh, you know what? I don't want to do it either.
Yeah. I mean, I have some past trauma, so that was not something I wanted to delve
Address.
into.
Yeah. So let's do this. We're not going to do it, not because we don't want to listen to suggestions, but it just did not hit a nerve with us to where we are just dying to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I hope that's okay. But just FYI, it's horrific. I would never want to work like with anybody like Dan Schneider. I think
He's gross.
he's gross.
He's gross.
He's gross. The man who he worked with that did, because I don't think Dan Schneider was directly accused of anything other of any direct sexual abuse. I don't think he was accused of that. I think he was accused of grooming and creating a sexual environment. But like there was the other guy
sexually exploiting these children.
Right.
Yeah.
But not actual sexual molestation.
Right.
But, you know, that other man was, that other producer. And
Right.
that story is so hard to listen to.
Horrible.
That I just don't want to exploit it even for laughs. I know that we've done some really horrific stories and tried to find some funny parts in it, but we've never made fun of a victim ever.
No.
Anyway, we're going to skip Quiet on the Set. All that to say.
It was almost as bad as Return to Neverland.
Oh, that's a bad one.
That was a bad one.
That was a bad one.
Like, that's not one I could do.
No, I would not. Yeah, that was a bad one. So we're going to skip Quiet on the Set, and we're just going to tell you we did watch it, and it was horrific.
Horrible.
And we have opinions. We don't really want to hash it out. We don't want to give these people 5 more minutes of our time. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
But since we promised that we were going to do it, I wanted to just address it.
On a lighter, happier note, if you're not on Facebook, Patreon has officially been relaunched.
Yes.
And we have got a lot of new subscribers.
I know. It's been so fun to watch.
And so next week when we do our episode, we're going to make sure to have a list of our new subscribers and shout some of those folks out. And then we have another shout out we need to give.
We do. First of all, we have to apologize. We have a lot of apologies to make today.
Listen, we're just human.
We're just human.
And some of us are recovering from tick bites.
That's right, but that just happened.
Well,
So, like 2 days ago.
Can you let me have it? It's been really hard.
But anyway, we have to apologize. But we do want to shout out our friends, Emmy and Megan.
Yes.
Do you say Megan or do you say Megan?
I usually ask, I think it's Megan.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not, like, if I just see it said, like, in writing, I say Megan. Is it Megan?
Megan.
Then I say Megan.
Not Megan.
No, because that would be
So you're saying sort of a hybrid between Megan, and Megan.
Megan? Well, it's my accent. So it's a little bit of both. It's kind of like when I said love is one. But it's love has one.
Yeah.
But when I say it, it sounds like love
Love
is one.
is one.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So
I
Megan.
used to have a young lady that worked for me, and her name was Megan, and she says she really would answer to anything.
Have you heard people say Megan?
Yes.
I don't like that. Oh, I'm sorry if that's how you pronounce your name. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
First Siamese and now Megan.
I think that is a symptom of Lyme disease.
So Megan, Emmy, thank you.
Thank you so much. We love you.
Yeah.
Please keep listening.
Thank you for waiting a good 9 months for the shout out.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. Actually, I do think we shouted them out on that episode that you lost.
Probably.
Yeah. But hey, guess what? You guys are our listeners of the week.
Indeed. I didn't know we had those, but congrats.
Guess what you get for that?
What you get is a shout out of the tail end of a tick story.
There you go.
So congrats. Team Foxcatcher. And Misty, have you ever heard of it?
I don't watch the news. No.
Well, I didn't hear it on the news either, but it was, I mean.
You said it was a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie, but it was also, I mean, it was yes. So the documentary came out first.
2016 was a rough year for me.
Okay.
I don't remember what was happening, but I'm sure it was.
Okay. So the documentary came out in 2016. I don't know if the movie came from based on the documentary, if it was just based on the story altogether, all the other pieces of the story, but both of them were incredible. And the movie had Mark Ruffalo as
I love him.
Mark Ruffalo as Dave Schultz, and Michael from The Office, Steve Carell, was John DuPont, and he earned an Oscar nomination for that.
Wow.
It is an excellent film. It's an excellent
Well, now
film.
I want to watch it because I've seen the documentary.
Yes, it's and I did the same thing. I watched one and then the other. It's really great. But anyway, it's one of my favorite documentaries, and I was like, you've got to watch this with me. So last minute today, Misty and I watched it again, and she watched it for the first time.
I did.
I love this documentary. There is something about it. I don't know what it is about it. I think
It's very well made.
I love it.
Yeah.
Did you notice there was no music really?
I didn't.
It was all story.
Yeah.
There's no narrator. It just goes from person to person telling the story.
I think that's why we like it.
It was very compelling. It was really compelling. It's the story of John DuPont and Dave Schultz. Dave Schultz was a Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler, not like WWE wrestler, like a Greco-Roman wrestler.
Like for real.
Yes, right. And he was a world-class athlete. And John DuPont was not a world-class athlete.
No.
John DuPont comes from the family DuPont, and you may or may not have heard of them. Had you ever heard of the DuPont family?
No, I kept thinking to myself, I'm sorry.
What in the world?
I kept thinking to myself, are these the vegetable people? And then I realized
Del Monte?
that's Del Monte.
Oh my gosh.
I actually Googled it.
You Googled it? Okay.
So I don't know how they made their money.
They're generationally wealthy.
Okay. So
Okay.
he didn't work for his money.
Oh, John DuPont, not a second of his life.
Okay.
No, he inherited it all.
Okay.
He grew up in a very, very wealthy family. Like the DuPonts at one time were billionaires. And back when he was young, they were kind of like royalty in America because they were so wealthy and they had so much influence because of their wealth. And like in the movie, we can see John DuPont himself being honored, and President Ford is talking about him. Like President Ford is up speaking about how great John DuPont and his family are.
But just because they have money, not because he did anything.
Right. I'm sure he's donated to causes and he had buildings named after him and that kind of thing. Those are the kinds of good things he did, not that he was out there building houses for anybody.
Right.
Like it wasn't like he was out there physically laboring over something. But anyway, they were very, very wealthy. John DuPont lacked for nothing. And in fact, later on, when, spoiler alert, when he's in jail, he still has full use of his money.
Really?
Absolutely. They can't take your money away. He can't make money off of the crime. So like he couldn't have written a book and said, this is my side of the story and made money on it. That's illegal.
But his victim couldn't sue him and take all his money?
Well, let's get there first.
Okay.
Let's get there first. But while he was in jail, he still had a significant amount of money, and he could do whatever they can't take his money away. That's stealing. The government can take that away.
Okay.
So now what I noticed first about John DuPont is that he had a spectacular butt cut.
Oh, a butt cut, bowl cut.
It was spectacular.
It was beautiful.
It was stunning.
Yeah.
In its depth.
Especially when he wrestled in it.
And the singlet.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, we are.
What's funny is, like, you see all these incredibly fit, beautiful athletes. I mean, they're ripped, okay? They're incredible. And then there's John DuPont right in the middle of it all. It's like this little kid that wants to be like all the grown-ups, and he's in the middle of it all, and they just humor him.
Well, and it's funny because the thing that he loved to do is set up these, like, sports training facilities on his property. And so at first he started out with swimming and trained all these swimmers. Well, he didn't really train them, but he
facilitated the training. He provided
he
a forum,
provided
yeah.
the facilities and the trainers for them. And then all of a sudden he decides, well, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do wrestling. And so he provides the facilities, he provides the trainers, he backs everything. But in return for that, he wants to feel like he's part of it. He wants to feel like an athlete.
Yeah, so he didn't just provide, he created an entire world, like an entire organization / world of wrestling. And he used his wealth to recruit all these wrestlers. And he partnered with the Team USA, with Wrestlers USA. And so he got Dave Schultz, who was like the very best in the world, in the U.S. certainly at the time.
Right.
He was an athlete, and he was working towards going back to the Olympics in 1988, I think it was. Maybe the 92 Olympics. I can't remember exactly. And, there was there was just one guy from Bulgaria who was at the top of his class, and he got hit, like he flew him over, and he was like, please come to the United States.
Right.
He would send limousines and money and promises of salaries, and he was like, just come.
Well, like he even built them all houses on his property.
There are houses on the property, and he would let them live on the houses. And he had this incredible, top of the line, like world-class facility,
right,
with coaches, and that's how he drew all these big names. The big thing I noticed here is that the 70s and 80s were a different time when it comes to men athletic uniforms.
Hey now.
A lot of penis outlines.
Well, they would have known if they had a tag immediately. They wouldn't have had to dig around for that.
No, they wouldn't.
No.
Do you know what's funny is one thing I thought of was back then, women's uniforms were not tiny. Women's uniforms were much more modest.
Right.
And men's were not. I mean, the shorter, the better, the tighter, the more outlines you can see, the better.
Right.
And that's changed over the years. And now women are fine. Like in beach volleyball, they're fined if they're not wearing a bikini. So anyway, so at some point, like you said, John DuPont discovers Greco-Roman wrestling and he goes all out. Okay. And so he brings everybody in and he brings that Bulgarian in, and the farm is called Foxcatcher, which I never had a hard time saying until I started recording this podcast. Foxcatcher.
Right.
Dave Schultz's wife called it like a sports utopia because it was all these people who had this one goal. They all loved to wrestle. They were all training for the same thing, and they were being funded. Like they were getting paid to do this.
Well, and it was almost like a community because, you know,
Yeah.
they're all living in these houses. They have their families there. All the kids played together. The wives are raising the kids
Yeah.
in the facility and
Yeah.
on the land. And
They're all family.
yeah, so they all were really close and connected too.
And the wrestlers had developed an affection. They had developed love for John DuPont, even though he was a little kooky and
he was a bit
little
eccentric.
odd.
Yeah.
Eccentric is how they described him.
And
But
they
to-
also were, I mean, they were so grateful for the opportunity and what he was providing for them. And they knew deep down, like, you know, this is helping kind of fill a void that he didn't have, like a childhood void. You know, he was never part of a real camaraderie or a team.
Well, he had to make an appointment to see his dad when he was a kid.
Yeah, he was very, he was not socialized as a little boy.
Yeah.
He missed out on a lot of that stuff. And so for him, he got great joy in feeling like he was just part of the team.
Yeah.
And so they would do things like teach him to wrestle and
Yeah.
wear the uniforms and, you know, do all that stuff.
Like in the documentary, like all of these wrestlers are now in their 50s and 60s, but they all said that they really came to love John. But to me, I think that they're just saying that because
do you think they felt like they had
to me, he's like a sugar daddy. And so they felt obligated
Yeah.
to love him and maybe developed some affection just because of proximity, because he's around and he is doing good things for them.
Well, and it's
so
very
it's easy to like somebody that does good things for you.
I mean, if you would provide me a house and a salary, I'd like you to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But in real life, if these people were executives or they had any other kind of life, they wouldn't be caught dead around John DuPont. Mm-hmm. Someone who behaved like him, who at some point later on, which we'll talk about, he develops paranoia, he develops a drug addiction, he develops, like, he ends up very mentally ill. Mm-hmm. And these people, they would not be caught dead near him if he didn't have all this money.
Or having their families around him.
Or having their families around him, right. Devoting their entire lives to being at Foxcatcher.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, we really love John. And I'm like, okay, well, he didn't have $200 million. Would you love him as much?
Would you love John?
Yeah, I think they'd love him a little less. I mean, they said that while they were flying private, you know?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's real easy to say, thanks, John, I love you.
Yeah.
When you're flying private. So, I mean, try flying Delta economy and then
John's looking a whole lot better to you.
That's right. That's right. But he was an odd bird. Like it wasn't even just like the paranoia that he later developed or that he wasn't socialized. It wasn't even that, because I think if you're not socialized, it just means that you're awkward, right? And there's plenty of people that are willing to kind of.
I think there's a different, I mean, from my professional experience and expertise,
Yeah.
I clearly thought he was very much on the spectrum.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, if you look at it from this side of things.
Yeah, and so it's very different to have a child on the spectrum versus a typical child who's not socialized. Yeah, you don't socialize a typical child, and maybe they say the wrong things or they're kind of don't get the jokes or whatever. You don't socialize a kid on the spectrum, and they have no sense of what being around another human being is supposed to look like.
Right,
you know?
it's not innate.
Because it's not something that comes natural for them.
Right.
It's something that's very learned. And when he's in a position where he's not playing with other children, he's not out in the public, he's not being taught to, you know, niceties and things that are appropriate to say and all those kind of things, and you have money and nobody's going to tell you it's not appropriate.
Right.
And they're not going to tell you it's not okay.
Yeah.
You can really develop something very bad.
That doesn't turn out well.
It doesn't turn out well.
For instance, one of the odd things that he did is he had a car and he just drove it into the pond because he wanted to.
A brand new car.
Brand new car. So he got out, they replaced the car.
Well, because they thought, oh my gosh, like
It's been
just
an
something
accident.
went wrong.
Yeah.
He had an accident.
The next day, he had a brand new Lincoln Town car, same kind of car.
Yeah.
He got in it and he drove it right into the pond with somebody in it.
With people in it.
Yeah.
Executives in it. Just because he could.
Just because he could. So it's that kind of thing like, I am going to do whatever I want to. You're not the boss of me.
And I'm going to show you that I have so much money, I can do whatever I want
I can
to.
wield it like a
Yeah.
weapon. He weaponized his wealth, that is for sure. And the other thing was he was really moody. So if he would come to the gym one day, into Foxcatcher gym, whatever they called it, if he was in a bad mood, woe unto anybody that was around him. I mean, it's like as John's mood was, so was everybody else's mood. So you just kind of held your breath until you knew what kind of mood he was in.
Well, and there's one part in the documentary where the guys, a few of the athletes are in the back of the car and they're kind of joking around or whatever. And they're kind of picking at him. And they're like, oh, John, you know, whatever. And he just blurts out and goes, I'm going to kill everybody and destroy the world.
Okay.
And they're like, yeah, did you just
That's
say
hilarious.
that? Like, he would just say, like,
Yeah.
you know what? It reminded me of the Jinx.
Oh my gosh. Which, incidentally, Jinx 2 soon. I'm
Yeah.
excited about it. You told me about it. And then
Yeah,
I saw
we're-
the trailer.
We're definitely doing it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But yeah, he reminded me a lot of Robert Durst.
Wow, what a lunatic
Yeah.
Robert Durst is. They're kind of similar, I guess, in that way. But another thing that he did, which, okay, I'm a terrible person, but it brought me joy, was to watch him. He developed he wanted to be a champion. He wanted to be like these elite wrestlers, okay? These people that are going up against the top of every single top person in the sport across the world. Okay, these are Olympic athletes. But he wanted to be that too. But he was older and
He's
he
like
couldn't
60.
do that. Yeah. I mean, he was definitely I think it was probably more like in his mid-50s.
Okay, he was past his prime.
He was definitely not able to do this.
And-
And he wasn't able to do it when he was in his prime.
I was going to say he had never had an athletic bone in his body to begin with.
No. But my favorite thing that he did is he created his own championship.
Yes. That's like me creating my own beauty pageant.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you're the only one competing.
I'm going to have my own American Idol, and it's just me.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Or you're going to have people that you select, and they're going to go up there and they're going to sing poorly on purpose.
Right. Or else I'm not going to be their friend or give them money anymore.
Absolutely. And so he did that. And it was so funny because either he willfully ignored it or he believed it. And everybody said he believed it. Like, he believed that he was winning against these people. But his friends, people like Dave Schultz, who is the wrestler that we've been talking about, who was kind of the first to kind of latch on and became his good friend, like really cared about him, were paying off these contestants. And I was watching it. It was like when my husband wrestles Nova. Oh, no, you're so strong. You're going to get me.
And they'd be like, I mean, like, even the contestant against him would try to be losing, but he couldn't because the guy didn't know what he was doing.
I know.
And they'd be like, let go of his head. Let go of his head. Like, let him lose.
Yeah, it was so funny. And then he would win, and there would be a whole ceremony about it.
Oh, yeah.
And
medals.
And then they would say, meanwhile on the side, we're giving this guy $500. Hey, thanks for your service.
Yeah.
Because he was intentionally being made to win. I mean, I thought that was hilarious. They called it the Masters Tournament.
The Masters
The John DuPont Masters Tournament.
And John DuPont was the winner every year.
So like American Idol would be Misty Gillespie's American Idol.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that'd be so funny. That'd be hilarious.
We should really do that.
Why can't we do that?
Let's do it.
Why can't we?
Let's do an American Idol on this podcast, and just you and I are the contestants. and
there's 2 winners.
And they vote, and we're both winners.
That's right.
Let's do that.
They just can't decide.
And we count the votes.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Foxcatcher had its own security, and it partnered with local law enforcement. So he was like, "Hey guys, I need some local security. Let me introduce you to my guys so that you guys can help keep me safe. I'm very, very wealthy. While you're here, let me give you all these guns and all these bulletproof vests, and let me make sure you're kept in really nice cars and that you're funded well. Thank you for your service.
You guys can come out here and practice shooting and do training anytime you want to.
I mean, do retreats here on property. I mean, it's a massive estate. It was a huge property.
Guess what? The whole police department was his friend.
They were buddies.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. He had a lot of friends. He had his own helicopter. And then he paid $1 a year, and he was a reserve officer, so he could do ride-alongs.
They gave him a uniform.
This is what money does.
They gave him a uniform.
This is how we're going to be when this Patreon gets going.
When this Patreon kicks off, I'm going to be doing all kind of stuff.
We're going to be insufferable.
I'm going to be a dentist.
She's going to be a dermatologist specializing in tick removal.
That's right. I'm going to open my own line of tick removal salves and creams. The name of my business, I'm Ticked.
Wouldn't it be better if it was You're Ticked? Let me tick you off. I don't know why everybody doesn't call us before they start a business.
Oh, gosh. Son of a tick.
No, he did love, John DuPont loved a tracksuit.
Yes, he did.
Now, he liked a velour tracksuit.
He liked the matching.
He liked a USA tracksuit. Mm-hmm. He liked a shiny tracksuit.
Yes.
He had them all.
Yes.
He had them all.
He loved a parachute pant.
Yeah.
To go with the tracksuit.
Absolutely.
And a Team Foxcatcher t-shirt at all times, even when he's being arrested.
You just gave it away, Misty.
I mean, it's all about branding.
Yes.
It really is.
What is it? ABC, always be closing.
Always be closing.
Always be closing. That's right. Dave Schultz was really John's best friend. Like, I don't think John knew it, but Dave Schultz really had his best interest in mind. Mm-hmm. Like the wrestler, they all really did. They knew that he was struggling mentally, and they would make an effort to always be around him so he wasn't by himself to harm himself or harm anybody else. So they would go, like they would put their kids to bed and they would take shifts. Mm-hmm. So until he went to bed, until he went to sleep, there was always somebody watching TV or hanging out with him.
Dave Schultz was just a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's a good man.
A good man.
Yeah, he was a good man.
And so, he got to know him. And maybe had they not met the way they did, it wouldn't have been a fast friendship. But I think he did develop friendship feelings for him and cared for him and saw this guy who, really didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
And felt for him and wanted to, be good to him because he had been good to him.
Now, one of Dave Schultz's best friends was this Bulgarian. His name was Valentin, or I don't speak Russian, so I don't know how to say it, but Valentin, whatever his name is. And they were very good friends. In fact, Dave Schultz had learned to speak Russian early on in his career because he liked Russian culture. Back then, that was the 80s when the Iron Curtain was still up. And do you know? I have no idea what the Iron Curtain is.
I know it was a WWF wrestler.
No.
I think that was Iron Sheik. Okay.
History lesson.
Okay. Maybe that should be our new segment. History lesson with Misty.
Today in history.
History class.
So anyway, Dave was fascinated with Russian culture, and one of the things in a communist culture, a lot like China, a lot like Russia, they put a lot of value in their athletes. and they identify them early.
They love a gymnast.
And they love a gymnast. Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
I was
That's the
obsessed
truth.
with Nadia Comaneci.
Romania, that's right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. They identify them as young children, and they are then identified as athletes, and they're the ones who are going to wear the banner. And there were a lot of wrestlers in Russia.
And they would take them from their families and put them in these training facilities.
Absolutely. They were no longer their families if they had any talent.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Dave Schultz liked Russian culture, and he learned to speak Russian because he wanted to understand what the Russian coaches were telling. Like in competitions, he wanted to be able to understand
what
they were saying, which I thought was a really long story to get to that, which I thought was just amazing. But you know how difficult it is to learn a foreign language, and not just learn a foreign language, but learn a foreign language like Russian that's based on the Cyrillic alphabet. It's not even based on a Romance language. Like for us, Romance languages, Spanish, English, French, Romanian, are all Romance languages. They all kind of sound the same. They're based off Latin, and so they're words that are a cognate is a word that sounds the same in different languages. Like for me, I speak 2 languages. It was easy for me to catch on to a third language because it was a third Romance language. If it didn't sound like English, it sounded like Spanish.
You know 3 languages?
I say I know 2.5 languages. I minored in French in college, so I wouldn't say I speak French, but I can catch on to a lot of it. Why are you staring at me like that?
I just only know 1 language.
Well, that's because you're American.
Well, privilege.
The Bulgarian and Dave were very good friends.
Yes.
Really, really good friends. But all of a sudden, John DuPont kind of took a liking to Val.
He really liked Val.
He liked him so much that he decided he was Bulgarian.
He
And
did.
his last name is DuPont.
He did. And he started wrestling for Bulgarian
Well, he just said he was Bulgarian.
Yeah.
He was like, he started wearing
wearing
their
like
colors.
Team Bulgaria.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the DuPont family comes from the Pierre Samuel Dupont de Nemours family.
That sounds a little French.
In France.
Oui.
Yeah. He was, no chance he had any Bulgarian in him at all. So he started wearing, the colors of Bulgaria. Everywhere he was like, I'm Bulgarian. Which is funny because later on he was like, I'm the Dalai Lama. Which he's not Bulgarian. But anyway.
It's kind of like Mother God.
Yeah,
I'm also Joan of Arc.
Exactly. Hey, Kaiko said he remembers Mother God being in Hawaii.
Does he really?
Yeah. He said it in one of our comments. Yeah. Special guest star on the next Love Has One episode.
Oh my gosh.
So he took a liking to Val, but that was a problem because Dave and Val were very good friends. And so that caused him to be jealous of Dave. And so he started have you ever, I know you have because I've done it too. You get this one thought in your brain and that leads to, well, that must have happened then. And then they must have done this because they did, it just this germ of a thought gets in your brain. And now you've spun this yarn that is turned into this monster of something in your brain. It's not even happened, but it's in your brain.
Philip calls that the story you tell yourself.
That is an awesome way to say that. That's actually the great title of a book.
Yeah.
That's really, really great because he became really jealous of Dave's relationship with Val. And he believed that Dave and another friend had a weather machine and they could control the weather.
Good God.
I guess you missed that part.
I was asleep.
Yeah, this is when you were asleep. So when I heard that, I thought, it's really easy for me to make fun of John DuPont because he was kooky.
Yeah.
But when he said that, it wasn't just being kooky. I realized at that point, this guy is mentally ill. Yeah, this guy has serious mental ill problems, and this is not just, oh my gosh, can you believe this?
Yeah, there's a difference in the story you tell yourself and then the stories like your mental illness is telling you.
Yeah. And I don't know if he was already mentally ill or if he spun himself into a situation where his brain was adapting to these thoughts. And so they kind of build on each other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know. But it got to a point where the FBI reached out to the Foxcatcher security team to let them know, hey, DuPont is not doing good. He's making some threats in the community. He liked guns. He had lots of weapons, and he was tons of ammunition. You know, he had a safe room in his house, and
Well, I mean, he had a firing range.
yeah, exactly. And so they were like, you got to handle this. And so that was the FBI. That was like the feds calling.
Right.
And they said, oh, you know what? That's just John. It's just, he's fine.
He's kind of different.
He's harmless. Yeah, he's totally harmless. But he kept getting worse. Like, he thought there were people in the walls. He thought that his dad had created fake horses and they were on the property. And he suddenly he thought black was the color of death. And so he got rid of everything black on his property. Horses, cars, clothes. He wouldn't wear anything that was black. He got rid of all the black people in his estate.
The black people from his wrestling
The
team?
wrestlers, the wrestling team.
Yeah.
Because they're black, he said. And they were like, hey, that's racist. And he said, oh, no, that's not racist.
No, it's not.
It's not racist. I just need you gone.
It's just the color of death.
I just need you gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Kevin Jackson was one of the athletes, and he was going to win this whole thing, and he fired him. He was a world class, he was a world champion.
Woo, we have all kind of ideas.
Yeah, Kevin Jackson was a world champion, and he just fired him. And he also John had an affinity for cocaine.
Oh.
Yeah,
A
which,
little bit of nose candy.
that's right, a lot of it, which made him stay up all night. He was just constantly going. So, these friends, people like Dave Schultz, they were coming over, but around 11 o'clock or so, that's when he was just getting going.
Like, I'm already full of anxiety and a little bit of paranoia. Could you imagine me on cocaine?
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
no.
my goodness.
I don't want any part of
Like,
it.
why in the world would you put something in your body that magnifies that?
Yeah. Well, and it also served to whatever other drugs he was doing, because it wasn't just cocaine, served to amplify his paranoia.
Yeah.
It just made, it didn't
just
just like
makes-
keep him awake, right?
Well,
And
I mean, you got to think he's already, because they had said he had already started to see things. He had already started to be like, watch this video. Can you see this thing moving? And they'd be like, I don't know, John.
Yeah.
He was already starting to have some hallucinations.
yeah, like his dad had created fake horses that were around the property and people in the walls.
Right. And so, you're taking this drug that makes it more vivid.
Yeah.
And makes it more real.
Let me tell you, when I had my oldest daughter 17 and a half years ago, one of the things that they gave, I had a C-section, and I was in the hospital the first night, and in order to help me sleep, apparently I was having a hard time going to sleep, I said they had ordered an Ambien for me, and I'd never taken an Ambien before.
I've never taken it.
I mean, it's a sleeping pill, right? And I knew I had family that had taken Ambien and loved it. Like, it was like their answer to not being able to sleep. So I was like, well, this is great. I'm going to be able to get a good night's sleep. The nursery has the baby, and I'm not going to sleep for the next 8 months anyway. So let me take this Ambien. Rhett had come home for the night. My mom was staying with me. And I took the Ambien. And first of all, it took me forever to finally get to sleep. Where I had always heard, you take this Ambien and bam, you're out. You better not do anything around the house because you're going to be out. Well, it took me forever to finally
Really?
get to sleep. And when I finally got to sleep, and I still remember it, and it's been 17 and a half years, I still remember it. There were people in the walls.
What?
I was in the hospital. Plain as day. I was laying in the hospital bed, and I know I was asleep. I knew that I was asleep. But in my dream, it was so vivid. There were people in the walls. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. The walls were very dark. Everything was nighttime. But there were monstery people in the walls. It was a nightmare. And I can remember my yelling, like, in the bed, and then my mom, the nurse, coming in and being like, what's happening? And I can remember her standing over me and telling me, it's just the medicine. It's just the medicine. And so I think this is what he lived with every single day. That was one night for me.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what he lived with every day, was seeing people in the walls. That is enough to do anything to anybody.
Yeah, I remember waking up from surgery one time when I had my gallbladder removed, and I guess I still had, or they were giving me pain medicine or something that did not react well with me, and I thought I didn't have a mouth anymore.
Oh, wow.
Like, Phil was trying to help me eat soup, and I
I
remember touching my face, and literally I could feel just blank skin. It felt like I didn't have a mouth
Wow.
anymore. And it was so scary.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine being that out of control that you see things.
Well, and that was his norm.
And hallucinate like that and living like that.
Yeah, it was his norm every day.
Of course it's going to drive you nuts.
Yeah, and it was I was going to say it was self-induced, but he probably had some measure of that without the drugs too.
I think it was self-exacerbated.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to say that.
Are you
Yep.
impressed that I knew that word?
So impressed.
Yeah.
Very good.
I did a little medical transcription
Very nice.
in my day.
Very nice. So Dave and another wrestler that lived on property, Robbie, they really cared for John. They really were really worried about him. So they consulted a doctor. They were like, hey, man, John is not doing good. He's hallucinating. And the doctor was like, that sounds like a chemical imbalance. We could really just fix that with some medicine. Mm-hmm. So they went over to John, and he got ticked off about it. He got really, really angry, and he rejected it. And so it made him mad enough that he threw Dan, or not Dan. Yeah, Dan. It was not Dan and Rob. Sorry, it was not Dave. It was Dan and Robbie. So a man named Dan. He threw Dan off the property. He was like, I know you've got a house here, but you're out. You no longer have a house. And he even rented a moving truck and took it to his house and said, fill this truck up, you're out. Mm-hmm. And the guy had to leave. Like within a few days, he had to move out of this house. Well, before he moved, he took his car and he parked it at Dave's house, Dave Schultz's house. Mm-hmm. And it was just to park it until he could get back to it. He had to get his, the truck out with his stuff, and he was going to come back to pick up his car. Okay. John DuPont drives by and sees Dan's car in Dave's driveway or Dave's house, mm-hmm. and he became incensed. Mm-hmm. He was so angry that he thought that Dan was at his house, and he was like, I kicked him out. So anyway, it just angered him mm-hmm. that the whole thing was happening. So it just sort of started filling his head. So he threw Dan off the property, and he had rented that moving truck. But Dan was at Dave's house, leaving that car, right? And John sees it. He walks in with a gun, and he says, a machine gun, and he says, I want you off the property. And Dan's like, I'm out. I got to go. I'm not here to get killed.
Bye.
Yeah. So Dan reports it to the police. He's like, hey, by the way, my car's over there, but just so you know, he just threatened my life. And the police said, that's just John.
Yeah.
That's just John. Then John gets mad enough that he sets one of the houses on his property on fire. So he's like really devolving pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. But he was still very angry that Dan had been at Dave Schultz's house to begin with. And so finally Dan took his stuff and left his house, and John heard that the stuff was still over at Dave's house. He goes over to his house. He was drunk. He had been doing some drugs, and he walked over to the house, and he had a gun. And this guy had already left by the time John got to Dave's house. Mm-hmm. And when he got to Dave's house, he was so drunk that when he started to walk into the house, he tripped and he fell and he hit his head.
Oh, gosh.
He hit his face, John. Mm-hmm. So he had a big, giant black eye. He was swollen. He cut his head open. And the next day, he made up a story in his head that the bruises were a result of being attacked by this man, by Dan, the guy he had kicked off. He had made that story up in his head, and he had made it and Dave was like, hey, man, that did not happen.
Yeah.
That, you just need to know that did not happen. But it did happen in his brain.
He believed it.
He believed it, yeah. He even went to the police. He was like, hey, this guy attacked me. And they had to go through the whole thing where they had to finally decide, hey, Dan did not do this. This was
right.
So anyway, it was in his head. And it was just crazy. Mm-hmm. So Nancy said, hey, we really need to leave. Nancy is Dave's wife. Nancy Schultz. She was like, this is really getting bad. Mm-hmm. We've got to go. And Dave was like, listen, the Olympic trials are only 6 months away. 6 months. We can stick it out. Meanwhile, Dave is becoming John's enemy in John's mind because of his relationship with this man that he had kicked off the property. Mm-hmm. And so things are starting to he's best friends with Val, his obsession. Mm-hmm. He was part of this whole thing with the doctor, and now he's friends with Dan, and things are it's like one tick mark after another, even though Dave had always been a really good friend to him.
It's just building up.
It's just building. That's right. So at the main house, Dave was training, and he was supposed to go get his kids this one day. And over at the main house, John wanted to show his security around the property where there was some damage from this big snowstorm that had been happening. I'm sure with the weather machine that Dave had put together.
Well, who else would be in charge of that?
That's right. So he was carrying a gun, and that day the Schultzes were having lunch, and John pulled up to their house, and Dave was like, oh gosh, John is here. So he walked outside where John had pulled up after having shown security, after having shown them around the property. We're like, hey, that tree is down. We got to fix this. And hey, let's stop by Dave's house. And Dave comes out, and John shoots him.
Just out of nowhere.
Just out of nowhere, because he carried a gun. I mean, he's always carrying a gun. And he just shot him. So it all kind of happened really, really fast. Well, the security that's in the car takes his seatbelt off to try to get out of the car. And John goes, we're out of here. He took off. So John just takes off.
Left the scene.
Right. He leaves his victim. Nancy is there trying to call 911. And there's the 911 call. It's horrific.
Oh, it's horrible.
He dies in the snow right there in front of the house while she's waiting on emergency. John has taken off with security in the car, and he goes to the main house. Now, if you watch this movie, you'll see it is an estate.
Oh, it's huge.
Not just, it is like a little town on its own. It's not just a big house. It's like property.
It's like the White House.
Yeah, it's bigger.
It's bigger, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I mean, there's houses on the property.
Yeah.
Okay, houses. And families living in these houses.
Yeah, I'm talking about his house alone.
It's like a development, right.
Yeah.
It's like a whole development. So he's like, no, we're out of here. We're going back to the main house. And they get to the main house, and John says, hey, security, the police will be here soon. Don't let them in, okay?
Yeah.
So he just goes in and he holds up inside his house. He's by himself. His mama's dead. She died many years ago. He lives by himself in this mansion. He's the sole heir of this money. And he is inside. And it's the dead of winter in a record-setting snowstorm. Okay. Meanwhile, Dave did not make it. Dave died on the ground. They did take him to the hospital, but he did not survive his injuries. Okay. He has 2 small children. His wife watched him die. She had to go straight to the police, where she went from the hospital straight to the police to answer their questions, and her children still did not know that their father had passed away. Their
And had
young
to go
children.
home and tell them.
She had to go home and tell them. It was horrific. Really interesting part of this is the next 50 hours of this man's life, where he has a safe room in his home. He's armed. He doesn't have any reason that he needs to come out. And the police are they're on the phone negotiating with him. And he says, His Holiness is in here, because now he thinks he's the Dalai Lama.
Right.
He calls his house holy ground.
Yeah, he says, y'all need to get off of this property.
This is holy ground. Yeah, you got to get off. And he's very cordial. He's very kind.
Yeah, he never gets upset.
It's not like, I didn't mean to do it. It wasn't that at all.
Yeah.
In fact, they never even mention what happened. It's just he was in there, holed up.
Yeah, they're just like, come out.
Yeah. And they knew that he was, he had ammunition out the wazoo, and he had tons and tons of arms. So it's not like they can go in guns blazing, because he could have blown them up. They could have been victims themselves. I mean, this is a freaking nightmare. And then 9:00, he was like, I'm going to bed, guys, okay?
Good night.
And I thought, if Philip killed somebody, this is how it would be.
Oh, yeah. He would be like, all right, guys, it's
like,
9
we'll pick
o'clock.
this up tomorrow.
Hey, guys, it's 9 o'clock. I've got to get my meal prep ready. I've got to iron my shirt, and I've got to go to bed.
Yeah, we'll pick this up back tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay?
talk to y'all tomorrow.
Yeah, all right, awesome. So this is what happened. He was like, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. So he did. Now, the next day, the police, the city, had turned off the heat and the power, I guess, in his home, which freaking genius.
Yeah.
Because it's record-setting
Snowstorm, yeah.
So he's talking to the negotiator, and he was like, hey, I think that my furnace is broken.
Can you
my
check
boiler
it?
is broken. Can you guys send a repairman?
Yeah, could you guys send somebody?
And the negotiator's like, I don't know that we can do that. I'll check on it for you. I mean, and this is what they're trained to do, just kind of get them into confidence, right? And so he goes, if you can't get anybody over here, is it okay if I just go out there
I'll
and look?
just go look at it.
Let me just take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he goes, yeah, go take a look at it.
He said, well, let me ask. Yes, I have special permission. Like, it was so hilarious.
It's fine. You can go out there and we'll leave you alone.
Yeah, he goes, oh, you got permission? He's like, yes, I have the guy on the other line. They said that you could come out. He said, now don't bring any arms, okay? Don't bring any guns.
Don't make anybody nervous.
Yes,
but
we
go
want to
check
keep
your
you
boiler.
safe. We want to keep us safe.
Right.
He's
Not
like,
a big
okay,
deal.
yeah. He said, I'll be wearing a black shirt and the colors of Bulgaria. my Team Bulgaria shirt.
He said, so you'll be able to identify me.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm coming out the back door. I'm coming out. Right. I'm just going to check on the boiler because it's getting cold in here.
So just make sure nobody messes with me.
That's right. Yeah. Keep me safe. Yeah. She said, yeah. So he did. So he goes outside to check on his boiler, and then he gets tackled.
Immediately.
The police were like,
we got him.
He said, yeah, I believe there was a tackle of some sort, but we got him.
Yeah, it didn't take much. He is a national championship wrestler, but we got him.
That's right. That's right. He is a Masters
award-winning wrestler.
Yeah, but we got him. We were able to get him. So sure enough, he gets arrested. I'll spare you all the details, but they found him guilty. Now they deliberated a long time, and I don't know what the holdup was. And then there was some conflict also about people remaining at Foxcatcher, because you may not have seen this part either.
I did.
Some people were like, well, we've invested a lot of time and energy, and he has a lot of money. And what's going to happen to us now?
Yeah, he's offered to double my salary if I stay.
That's right. And so what's going to happen to me now if I leave? I know he killed my very best friend, but he didn't do it to me.
Right.
So I think I'll stay. Val in particular.
Why would I not double my salary?
Val in particular, who spoke at Dave's funeral and called him his very best friend for 6 or 8 years, I can't remember, and lived with the Schultz family. He and his wife and his children lived with the Schultz family, and they were raising their children together. They were that close. He opted to stay at Foxcatcher and continue his career. And they said there were 2 camps. There was Team Foxcatcher and Team Nancy Schultz. And
you either went with one or the other.
One or the other. So it was really it was interesting. It was sad. It's just what money does, right?
It does. It divides people.
It's not even, like you're doing okay. It's that kind of serious wealth that nobody else has. It's just crazy. So anyway, he was found guilty. They deliberated forever, and then Nancy filed a wrongful death suit. And that is a non-criminal lawsuit. Like, this is a lawsuit because now they found him guilty, right? So he for sure is guilty of killing Dave in a criminal court. So now the next step is to sue him in a civil court for as much money as possible.
Right.
And she did get a settlement. It's undisclosed. I'm sure there was an NDA signed.
I'm
sure she's doing okay.
I'm sure it's millions.
I'm sure. Oh, it's in the many millions.
Yeah.
She and her children will never want for anything, but they had to grow up without their father.
Yeah.
She had to raise her children without,
as they should,
the love of her life and her children's father. And they were like a great couple. He died when he was 72 years old. And per his request was buried in his red singlet. And when his will was read, who was his sole heir?
The Bulgarian.
The Bulgarian. Is that unbelievable?
Crazy.
Is that the craziest thing? So the Bulgarian is like, I went from communist Russia.
And now I own the DuPont fortune.
Doing okay. And now I'm doing okay because I decided to stay here.
Crazy story.
He did say he felt bad about it.
I feel bad about it, but the money helps.
The money really eases the pain.
I didn't donate the money to anybody.
Yeah. Did you like this movie?
I did. I thought it was really good.
I thought you would really like it.
It was good.
I loved it. It's one of my very, very favorites.
It was very well told. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Watch the movie next.
I am.
Watch the movie next. You're going to love it.
Well, thank you for your storytelling.
You're very welcome.
It's amazing.
Thank you. That's what I tell myself.
I know you do. This is probably the most organized telling of a documentary we've had yet because I sat here.
You sat there. You didn't interrupt unless I asked you a question.
Well, I'm still healing.
You're still healing?
Yeah, I'm still healing. So I need some time. Good night, Amarillas.
Good night. I'm sorry y'all had to hear 5 seconds of any of that.